Okay, so very good. Thank you. Welcome again. It's 5:31. This call is being recorded so that we can share the link with all of our parents this evening, as early as this evening. So once again, welcome on. It's the 11th day of school today. So I do want to take a moment to just kind of brief you on the first couple of weeks. We had a holiday yesterday, but I want to provide you as much information as possible. Let me just begin by just apologizing in advance if I have failed to provide you with the most adequate information, or if I have failed to provide it in a timelier fashion. I, just like you, have never led a school under the circumstances that we're living in right now. I knew very little. I still know very little about contact tracing, guidelines from the California Department of Health, the Imperial County Department of Health. So I'll just say that I assure you that I am doing, and our team is doing, the best that we possibly can to try to provide your students with class education. So if I, and I'm going to say I, because I am the principal at Imperial, if I'm coming up short on that, I assure you that I will work harder or smarter to make sure I'm not coming up so short. So I do appreciate your patience. Having said that, I'm going to provide some information regarding protocols for exposures to COVID-19, and I'm going to do it as the best of my ability with the last several days of learning this process. Okay, so if I may, let me just share my screen with you. Now, you can, if you have questions, you can hold them till the end. My presentation isn't very long. It's just informative or disseminating information. You can put questions in the chat, or we can wait till the end of the presentation and I can take questions at that time. You can just unmute yourself at the end and I will take the questions. Now, again, I will say that I'm doing my best to answer them as much as possible. The last thing I want to do is have you leave more confused at the end of the talk. So I'm hoping that we have a better understanding. Today's not August 23rd, it is September 7th. I will change that. Okay. So these are COVID-19 protocols for positive cases and exposure. Now, at the end of this presentation, I have provided tools that will take you to the California Department of Public Health for two different communications. So before anything, we must confirm, before any of the steps that you see here before you, we must confirm the date of a positive test, and then the last time that the student was on campus. If the student has not been on campus in the last 48 hours, it's not necessary to conduct any contact tracing. This is why it's critical that any students who feel even a little bit under the weather remain at home. If the student does not meet the 48 hours, these are the steps that we take. So first, we have confirmation of a positive case by the parent and or by a copy of a positive test. Note, the positive case must be confirmed by the parent or guardian. I cannot confirm a case based on rumor, okay, or word of mouth. If information lands on my desk I usually pick up the phone, reach out to the family, and confirm myself whether the child has tested positive or not. Okay. If we have a person, a student who tests positive, then we start our contact tracing. So what happens is I provide the information to our nursing team and district office personnel. Then our nursing team contacts the staff members where the positive case was present. Ask for anyone who was in proximity for 15 minutes or longer. In most cases, these would be the students who are seated in front or behind the positive case. So what we do is I reach out to the staff members where the positive case is, and then our nursing team or myself, we ask the teachers for their seating chart, or they let us know who is sitting in front of, behind of, and within 6 feet. Okay. After that, our nursing team reaches out to the families of those who are exposed. The student and the family is exposed, is informed of the possible exposure, and are provided options for quarantine and or modified quarantine, depending on vaccination status. Okay, now I want to stress that this is all based on guidance from the California Department of Public Health. This is not, these processes were not created by the Imperial Unified School District, by Imperial High School. We are following the guidance of the California Department of Public Health in conjunction with the Imperial County Department of Public Health. So once we communicate with that their child was exposed, we have an option. We have an option for students who are vaccinated. If a student is vaccinated and is not experiencing any symptoms, the student may remain in school. Families may also opt to keep the student at home for the 10 days. It is recommended that they test after 3 days. Okay. From the California Department of Public Health for vaccinated people. All right. Now, if your child happens to not be vaccinated, these are the options. It's either quarantine for 10 days, or it's what's called a modified quarantine. So if the child is not vaccinated, the student must quarantine at home for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, and so long as the student does not show any symptoms within at least 24 hours, the student may return to school at the end of the 10 days for exposure, okay? Now, for a modified quarantine, a student who remains asymptomatic and tests negative a total of at least 2 times during the 10 days may continue to attend school. So if I'm exposed today, I have to go home, but today's Tuesday, Wednesday. If I test on Thursday and I test negative and I'm not displaying any symptoms, I can come back to school so long as I test again in 72 hours. So we end up testing 2 to 3 during that modified quarantine. And as long as the student continues to display no symptoms and produces a negative test, then the student can stay in school. Or the family can just opt to keep the student at home for the 10 days. Okay. Now, once a student has to stay home for 10 days, we notify our attendance team and mark the absences as excused. Okay. All of the students' teachers are informed and assignments are provided, or students are directed to Canvas. It really depends on how the teacher is providing those assignments for the student. So once we know that a child is going to have to stay home for 10 days, we let the attendance team know, we let the teachers know, And students who require additional assistance may reach out to their teacher, their counselor, or the administrator who oversees their letter of the alphabet. Okay. I also recommend that all are included in the email. If you reach out to their counselor, just include Mr. Rubio, Mrs. Den, and myself in it. Right now, there's a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen. So we want to make sure that as many people as possible are included in that communication so that we can have more eyes on it than just one set of eyes. We're going to be opening up the homework center here pretty soon. And that will also be a resource for students who are in quarantine. So with quarantine, it's like being out on an illness, even pre-pandemic. We would collect the students' work or assignments. Teachers, I mean, then we would reach out to families, and then you would come by and pick up the assignments, complete them, and bring them back. Or as soon as quarantine is over, the student can bring back their assignments to school. So let me just back up a little bit. Once again, to reiterate, also, we do not send communication to all parents or all families if a positive case turns out on campus. Now, if your child is exposed, you will receive communication from our medical personnel, our school nurses, as well as in writing that your child's been exposed. If we have a positive case on campus, we do send a communication to all staff members, letting them know that there's been a positive case on campus. But only the classrooms or teachers that are directly impacted, where the positive case was present, are the ones who are communicated with and for the purpose of contact tracing. Okay, so a lot of times, what I've also, it's brought to my attention, it feels like, hey, is there something being hidden? I like to think I've been at Imperial High School. This is my 8th year. I take a lot of pride in being as an open book and be transparent with my parents, with our teachers, with our students, as much as possible. Without, obviously, I can't violate confidentiality laws, but if I can tell you how things are going, I will. And I'll be honest with you, the first 10 days of school have been a challenge, because we want to make sure that we're keeping your students as safe as possible. So it's tough when we have to make a call that there's an exposure. But I tell you what, I have to thank all of our parents for their support and just being great sports when it comes to this kind of thing, because I know how anxious it is right now. And I wish we could do more, but I assure you that we're doing the best that we possibly can, considering the circumstances, and learning this as we move forward, and taking the guidance from the California Department of Public Health, and working with our district office, and working with the Imperial County Public Health, and working with our nursing team here in our district. Our front office number is 760-355-3220, extension 22195. That's our front office receptionist. Attendance office is extension 22196. Counseling, A through GA, extension 22489. GE through N, extension 22411. O through Z, extension 22490. Then administration, Mr. Rubio oversees students with the alphabet letters that end in A through L, and he's at extension 298. And then Mrs. Den oversees M through Z, and she's at extension 22193. And yours truly, I'm at extension 22199, or my mobile number is 760-540-1366. I will share this presentation this evening via PDF. And I have here the COVID-19 public health guidance for K-12 schools in California for the 21-22 school year. And I also have here the COVID-19 public health recommendations for fully vaccinated people. The presentation that I put together here, the short one, is based off of this guidance, okay? And I am always open for constructive criticism or feedback. And it's not a, I understand it's a difficult, it could be a very stressful time. And we are working as hard as we can and as smart as we can to keep as many folks in communication as possible. If I have to have, if you as my parents think I need to have a Tiger Talk once a week for the next several weeks, just to give you an opportunity to ask questions or for me to give information, I'm willing to do that. Normally, our Tiger Talks would be the second Tuesday of each month. Today is the 7th, so our next one would be happening on October the 12th. But if we want to have one every Tuesday for the rest of September, to give us an opportunity to ask questions, even if it's just 2 people who show up, then I'm perfectly prepared to do that. I'm prepared to meet with all of us every Tuesday at 5:30 with any questions, record the conversation, and share the link with all of our families. It's important to me and to our team that you know that we're doing the best that we can, and your input is always welcome and always appreciated. And I do thank a lot of you who have reached out to me via text message or phone call. I really try to get back to all of you. If I haven't, please forgive me, and please don't hesitate to send me another text message or give me a call. Hey, Joe, you know, you haven't gotten back to me. It's been 24 hours. I really need to talk to you, and I'll get back to you. If I don't, then it's not because I'm not wanting to. I think most of the time, if not all the time, I do work to get back to my parents to make sure that I can provide, I'm serving you adequately. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. So if I have, you know, someone mentioned it should be every week. Why don't we just do this? I will schedule another Tiger Talk 1 week from tonight on Tuesday. And to give you any updates, to answer any questions. And we'll determine next week if we need to have another one on the 21st. So today's September 7th. We'll have one on September 14th. We'll have one on September 21st, and we'll have one on September 28th. If that's what it's going to take for us to have a little bit of peace of mind. Now, if I'm not answering your questions, give me some time to find them for you. Again, the protocols that we're following are not Joe Apodaca's ideas. They're not the Imperial Unified School Districts. These are all guidance, California Department of Public Health. Are they perfect? I'm not one to judge that. I'm just working as best as we can to be in compliance with recommendations as well as with any mandates. Okay. So having said that, it's 5:51 right now. I'm open to questions, comments, wonderings, and we will have a Tiger Talk. I will schedule another one for next Tuesday, September 14th at 5:30 p.m. We're also going to be having, we're talking, you're going to be getting an email from me with a survey for back to school night, which we're looking at doing that on Tuesday, September 21st. But we're very curious to see if we want to do it face to face, or if you would, I guess I want to see how many parents would participate if it's a face to face back to school night, or if we would rather not do a face to face and work on a virtual option. That's definitely something. You'll be receiving that survey from us tomorrow before noon. So if you take some time and talk to some of other parents to fill it out.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. It's because I turned on the meeting, but I was in the middle of cooking, so I don't know if I got it right. So if the kid is exposed to COVID, the kid would be quarantined for a couple of days until it's negative.
No.
Sure, that is
Really quick.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
So if a student is exposed, okay, if we have a confirmed exposure, then the student, depending on the vaccination status, okay, if we have a full exposure, a student is exposure and a student is fully vaccinated and is asymptomatic, the student may remain in school. Okay, but they need to, it's recommended that they test after 3 days. Now, if the student is not vaccinated and the student's exposed, then the student must quarantine at home for a total of 10 days.
Oh, wow.
So long as the student does not show any symptoms within 24 hours, the student may return to school at the end of the 10-day quarantine. There is a modified quarantine for a student who remains asymptomatic and tests negative at least 2 times during the 10 days they may continue to attend school. So it really depends on their vaccination status.
Okay. Well, okay. It says we're learning more and more about the vaccine. And so we know that it doesn't really immunize you 100%. So maybe the ones that are vaccinated still getting the same risk. I think 10 days for a non-vaccinated kid is too much of a school to lose. But as you said, those are the recommendations. You're not the ones to make them. So on those days, until those 10 days, are they going to have access to Zoom, or it's going to be just like they're sick and they're just doing their homework at home?
Right. So what happens during those 10 days is those absences are excused. And we reach out to all of their teachers and ask them to provide the assignments that they're going to miss or will miss during that absence. Now, if they need additional support, they would reach out to their teacher individually, and that teacher would be able to provide that support. We also putting up our homework center where they would have access to support through the homework center as well.
Through Zoom, or because they're going to be out for 10 days.
Right, but just like it would be just as if they were out pre-pandemic for an extended period of time. So there are no, the teachers may very well if need be, can Zoom with the student, but it's not going to be, it won't be like the distance learning model that we had last year.
Yeah.
Mr. Apodaca, can I say something in regards to like my classes?
Yes.
So for my courses, all of my assignments are posted on Canvas, and I make instructional videos, whether they're in class or so they can access them at home or in class. So they've got access to all of the instruction as well as the materials on Canvas. And so that will be an ongoing thing as long as we're, it's just going to be an ongoing thing for my class. And as far as Homework Center, we're going to run this Homework Center beginning September 13th. And it will be a combination of in-person and Zoom. So kids will have the option to come in online as well. So we'll have tutors available online, and we'll have tutors available in person to work with them.
That's awesome. What if more teachers have the same?
I would prefer to say that the majority of our teachers are, if not all of our teachers, are willing to work with all of our kids. I mean, we have 63 teachers on campus, and all of them we would all rather not be working through this. So, you know, I would imagine that all of our teachers would be there to support our kids who are struggling. And as Ms. Keaton mentions, the Homework Center is going to be an awesome resource as well. We do offer that virtually. We're going to be offering that virtually. Ms. Keaton, when are we starting the Homework Center if we haven't already?
September 13th.
September 13th. So, I mean, everything that you mentioned right now, Ms. Maceda, is you know, with regards to the vaccine, but like I mentioned earlier, we're going based on the guidance that we're getting. I mean, and it very well may change. It could change tomorrow or by the end of the week. If it does change, then I will definitely let everybody know. You know, that
Are those guidance or it's mandated?
they're both
Recommendations, or like the school can work something different, or it has to be like that?
no, well, I'll be honest with you. We're receiving guidance from the California Department of Public Health on how to address both exposures and positive cases when it comes to vaccinated and unvaccinated people.
Well, my concern is that even the vaccinated kids are at the same risk as the ones that are not vaccinated right now, for the information that we all receiving right now, that we know that the vaccine is not 100% perfect. So having a completely healthy child for quarantine of 10 days doesn't seem that be productive, especially for those kids, I'm talking for mine, that needs a little bit more help and needs to be at school, preferably than doing homework at home. That's all.
Right. No, I agree. And if you look at, if the student is vaccinated, and I understand, but if the student is not vaccinated, the option for a modified quarantine, all right, student must quarantine for a total of 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, so long as the student doesn't show symptoms within the last 24 hours, he may return to school. Now, for modified quarantine, right here, a student who remains asymptomatic and tests negative at least twice during the 10 days may continue to attend school. So for example, if my child is exposed today, then we would have to wait at least 72 hours. And at that point in time, if my child tests negative and is feeling no symptoms, then he can come back to school. And then after that, 72 more hours pass, he would have to test again. So testing in under a modified quarantine anywhere between 2 to 3 times to make sure that the tests continue to come back negative, as long as they're not feeling any symptoms. So a lot of parents keep their kids at home for the 10 days because it's 10 days, not just school days. So that's still, if you start on Monday, that's 5 days, Saturday, Sunday, that's 7, and that's 3 days that's 5 full weeks and 5 school days, 8 school days, if you will, if you count weekends, depending on when the exposure happens. So if a student is unvaccinated, then they may take advantage of a modified quarantine, as long as the child remains asymptomatic and produces a negative test 2 to 3 times during the 10 days, they can continue to attend school.
Yes, my child is not vaccinated and we're not planning to.
Okay.
So we're kind of like in the group that doesn't have the modified quarantine.
No, well, actually, you do have a modified, if a child is not vaccinated and is exposed, okay, we're not talking about positive cases here. We're talking about exposure. So if a child is not vaccinated and they're exposed, okay, they qualify, they can take advantage of a modified quarantine, which is where, as long as they remain asymptomatic and can produce a negative test at least twice during the 10 days, they may continue to come to school. So if my child was exposed today, they can't come to school tomorrow. We wait for 3 days to take a test. It takes about 3 days. So then if the test comes back negative, you don't have to wait the other 7 days. That child can come back to school as long as they remain asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing any symptoms, and there's a negative test. Now, 72 hours after that first test, they would have to test again. And if they continue to remain test negative, they continue to come to school until the end of those 10 days, and then the quarantine component is over.
Okay, thank you for explaining it, because that makes sense now.
No. Thank you for your patience. I just hope I'm doing the explanation justice, because I've had to explain it a few times between last week and tonight. So I think I'm getting better every time I get to explain it. So thank you for asking me to explain. Okay,
Are you taking any more questions?
absolutely.
I have 2. One is COVID related. I have heard that there are posters in classrooms that talk about COVID and talk about taking temperatures daily. I hear that the school is not taking the students' temperatures daily. What is your position on that?
That's correct. The posters that you're referring to, sir, are probably still up from the springtime, when we did offer face-to-face instruction and we were mandated to take temperatures to come in, but that's no longer part of the, we're no longer asked to do that. So that's not part of the guidance from the California Department of Public Health anymore.
Okay, good to know. I have a non-Canvas question. Are you able to take those today?
Sure.
The Canvas program that you went to last year versus the program before, I understand Canvas does not communicate well with ParentVue, or doesn't at all, in terms of when the parents enter the grade. They used to enter the grade in a different program, and now they enter it in Canvas. Canvas apparently doesn't link well or at all to the ParentVue, so now the teachers have to enter grades twice. Is that true?
It's true and not true. It shouldn't be happening, sir. And those are areas, those are issues with our student information system and Canvas that I was under the impression have gotten better, but it's probably not quite perfect, but we're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. in the chat in terms of precautions for swimming. Right now, as far as swimming is concerned, we there aren't any guidance as far as in being in the water. Outdoors, masks are not mandated. Indoors, they are. And once they go in the water, I mean, they go through with their activity. So that's a good question that I was actually looking at before earlier in the week or this weekend for being in PE. Once students are outdoors, it's a little bit different, but that's something that I can get more information on for next week's talk. Okay. So once again, if there are more questions, I'm going to stick around a little bit for a few more minutes. As soon as this call is over, I'm going to download it and I'll be emailing a link to everyone along with the PDF of the presentation. If there's any questions in Spanish, I will stick around. Si hay preguntas en español, aquí estamos también para servirles, para tomar preguntas en español si se ofrece. So we're here. If there's any questions, you all have my number. You have my email. Again, we will meet again next Tuesday at 5:30, and we will meet every Tuesday for as long as it takes for us to work together at getting all of our questions answered and our comments listened to. And I'm a parent too, ladies and gentlemen. Most of our teachers, if not all of us, we're parents. We're not just teachers, we're parents. And your concerns are our concerns. But I will say this, if your child is feeling even a little bit under the weather, don't take any chances. Keep them at home. Contact our teachers and let them know, hey, look, we're feeling a little under the weather today. We're going to stay home and we'll provide you the assignments. Now, I've had, if you wake up with a little bit of a sore throat, it could be allergies. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Give it 24 hours. 24 hours, you have nothing else, come back to school. But if you're feeling sick, if you're a little bit under the weather, don't take any chances. Just go ahead and keep your child at home and communicate with our teachers. It is a challenging time for all of us, but I'm sure that we can get through this, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to be perfect. We don't have all the answers, but we can work together to find them. So I do appreciate everyone's input, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just have a concern question, maybe. If I'm not mistaken, there have been other schools in the county that have notified all parents of COVID positive cases in the school itself. Is Imperial High School opting to not inform parents of positive COVID cases? I mean, with keeping the names of the children or teachers out of the notification, is it not public information to be able to be notified when there is a COVID case on campus?
I would need to look at that, because in my conversations with other site administrators, parents are being notified, but the parents who are directly impacted by the exposure. So that would be something that I would need to look at for the next call.
So is it, going into it, if I were to ask, have there been positive cases at the school at this point, up until this point?
Yes.
Yes, there have been.
Yes, and there have been, and parents whose children were exposed have been notified. So if a parent has not been notified, then it hasn't applied to their child.
Okay, and the nursing staff is analyzing whether or not a kid or they think a child was exposed to it.
Correct. We're mandated to do contact tracing.
Mhm. Okay, and how up until this point, how accurate has the tracing been?
It's been as accurate as we can, as it can be, considering
Okay.
we're looking to see who, if any, like, for example, if there's a positive case and then we contact the teachers, we asked our teachers to identify where the positive case was seated and who was near that case for 15 minutes or more.
Okay,
See, those are the people who were sitting beside them, in front of them, or behind them.
and then these students are being asked who they sit with at lunch, in the cafeteria with, who they're hanging out with, things like that
Right,
also?
but yes,
Okay,
but what you have to keep in mind is that the guidance indoors and outdoors is a little bit different.
correct, I understand that,
Right,
but I mean, they
We-
are still exposed regardless of outside, correct?
right. We
Okay,
try to get as much information as possible. Now, I won't lie to you, we're at the mercy of the students and the families telling us. So if your child is positive or is sick and you don't let us know that, we won't be able to find out. So our kids usually do a great job of talking to us. When we talk to the parents, they'll let us know of anything else, and then we'll get moving on that. So we're doing the as best possible job that we can to identify anyone who's exposed.
thank you, we appreciate that. I'm sure you guys understand my concern and fear at the same time for, during these times.
I completely empathize with it. Absolutely. Okay. So once again, we will meet again 1 week from tonight, September 14th, Tuesday at 5:30. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much for everything. I'll stick around a little bit longer, a couple of minutes, to take any more questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Apodaca. Your meetings are always so informative. I appreciate them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words and feedback.
I don't know, my kids weren't in another district before, but I truly am happy now.
Well, I'm glad you are, and I hope you can stay happy.
You have a good night, sir, and you just stay safe, rest.
You do the same. Take care. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be ending this call. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay strong. Tiger Pride.